This is Up Close. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. On this week's episode, we're looking at different ways of looking at our pasts and what we recover when we do so. This book is a must-read for anyone interested in religion in America. Delivering a perspective of religious difference in a country often described as Christian, Peter Manseau stops by to discuss his book, One Nation Under God's A New American History. And then, what we remember of the past is often colored by the way we choose to memorialize it. Brigitte Sion examines the impact of such monuments in Memorials in Berlin and Buenos Aires, balancing memory, architecture, and tourism. But first, here's my interview with Peter Manseau about one nation under more than one God. So what you do with the book, you bring together some dozens of stories of, I guess, primarily religious difference. What surprised you the most as you were exploring this history of?
Well, I wanted to tell stories of people caught in between majority culture and minority traditions. And I wanted to tell those stories as a way of showing that these minority traditions can have an influence much larger than what their numbers would suggest. So the things that surprised me were the ways in which that happens, the ways in which minority tradition influences the mainstream. And there are certainly ways that were not part of my education. I was given a fairly good American education. I thought I had a good sense of American history. But when I began this project and I had to re-examine the ways I thought about American history, I realized that there were Christian tropes throughout that I may not have even realized. So scratching that difference, or scratching those tropes and looking for the difference within them is what I wanted to do.
Where do you think the common narrative gets it most wrong?
Let's look at a few moments where we might start the story of American history. We could start with Christopher Columbus, for example, with a man sailing across the ocean in a ship that's named the Santa Maria. The full name in English is the St. Mary of the Immaculate Conception, so a ship very clearly named for the mother of Jesus Christ. And when we think of his journey, we imagine him striding off his ship up on the shore of some island and planting a cross, which actually happened, and claiming everything that would become America for the faith. But focusing on that one symbol, on the cross on the beach, claiming America, we missed the fact that his entire journey would not have happened without the problem of religious difference in Europe, in the place that he came from. 1492 is not only the year Columbus set sail, it's also the year that the Jews and the Muslims were evicted from Spain, and that created the conditions under which he would begin his exploration.
And America becomes, in this kind of probably an exception in world history, in contemporary society at each point, for the constant smashing up against each other of different religious groups. And does that make American religion, number one, develop at a faster pace, but then also become more uniform in a way because there's all this sharing that and this kind of natural selection of religious themes that over a couple hundred years ends up coming together in a common way?
That's a great question. We often speak about the United States as being the most religious nation on the earth, and anyone who's done a little bit of traveling knows that may not be the case. If you've been to India, for example, you're constantly bumping into religious difference everywhere you go. All over Europe, each country has its own variety of religious difference. But what's unique about the American situation, I think, is that only here did you have a population that was here originally, that had its own set of religious ideas, another population that came soon after, that brought a second set of ideas, who soon began to import against their will a third population, the enslaved population, and soon a fourth population, different sets of immigrants coming across from the other direction, bringing Asian religious ideas. So only here do you have, through successive generations, more and more religious ideas adding on to each other and bumping into each other.
And now, Brigitte Sion speaks about memorials, including one that she declares a failure. What is going on with memorializing the Holocaust in Berlin?
There's a lot going on. I think the memorial, the main memorial I write about in this book is the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe, which is the first national Holocaust memorial in Germany. Doesn't mean that there are no other Holocaust memorials. I'm sure you know a lot of them, and probably our viewers have seen a lot of them. But this is the first time that Germany actually built and sponsored, the state of Germany sponsored a national memorial to the Jews that were murdered during the Holocaust. So it's something new in itself, even though the memorializing is not new. What is really interesting in this particular case is that there were considerable challenges that faced the initiators of this memorial.
And we've seen controversies in recent years at various points over what you might call Holocaust selfies of various tourists deciding to stop in front of a memorial and take a picture of themselves, and sometimes pictures of themselves jumping up happily, sometimes pictures of themselves kissing, doing things. But that seems to be kind of the cost of doing business. The cost of memorializing something publicly is that you don't really get to make choices about how people will receive it.
Right. When Peter Eisenman dedicated the memorial in 2005, he actually said, "I now give the memorial to the people of Berlin. It's not my memorial, and it's not, even though I'm the architect." And what he meant by that is that it's time for the population to appropriate this monument and do whatever they want to do with it in a way. But really, one of the issues is, does it tell us more about, or take 9/11 and take the new memorial and museum for 9/11 in downtown Manhattan. Does it give us really a sense of what the tragedy was and how it's commemorated, or is it more of a snapshot of how now, in the year such and such monument was built, this is the way we relate to the tragedy and how we remember it?
You talk about within an individual memorial, losing sight of the individuals who died. It seems like we're losing sight even of the large masses, the identity of individual events in and of themselves, that if the Holocaust memorial echoes so much a 9/11 memorial or a Vietnam War memorial, and a memorial for the disappeared echoes so much, a memorial in Cambodia, and so on and so forth, are we even losing hold of these events as distinct events?
I don't want to be that pessimistic. I think that's why you need, beyond the memorial itself or the architectural rendition of a memorial site, which can be very powerful and very symbolic and work on the emotional side of memory. That's how we cry, that's why we are moved, that's how we want to ask questions, that's why we feel shaken or disturbed or any kind of feeling and emotion that is triggered by a memorial site. But then our cognition needs to be fed in a way, and so that's why we need museums, or we need a whole educational equipment next to that.
That's all for this week's abbreviated web episode of Up Close. A reminder, you can see the full episode of Up Close on the Jewish Channel on cable, or listen to the full audio of the show as a podcast, available on iTunes and your favorite podcast player. The Jewish Channel is available on cable, Time Warner Cable Channel 1640, IOPLM Channel 505, RCN Channel 268, Cox Cable Channel 1, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and on Comcast on the on-demand menu on premium channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.